In the book of Jude, there's a story that's not found anywhere else in the Bible. It talks about a time when Michael, a powerful angel, had a disagreement with the devil, Satan, about where Moses was buried. The Bible says Michael didn't want to start a big fight with Satan. Instead, he just said, "The Lord rebuke you." This story is pretty unique, and it makes us wonder how Jude knew about it. Some people think Jude heard this story through old traditions. The real reason why Michael and Satan were arguing is not clear. But one guess is that Satan might have wanted people to worship Moses instead of God by making a special place at Moses' grave. Michael, who looks out for the people of Israel, didn't want this to happen. In another part of the Bible, Gabriel, another angel, mentions that Michael is the only one who really stands up against evil forces on behalf of Israel. When people hear the name Moses, they think of different things. Moses' death is a bit of a mystery. We know he died at 120 years old, still strong and healthy. Moses was still full of life when he passed away. Moses, a great leader, couldn't go into the land he had been aiming for because he didn't follow instructions at Meribah Kadesh. He got to see the land from a distance, but couldn't step foot in it. Near the end of his life, Moses went up a big mountain called Nebo, and from there, he looked out at this special land. Imagine, at 120 years old, Moses climbed a really tall mountain, almost a mile up. That's not something many people, especially at his age, could do. But Moses did it, showing how strong he was. Moses knew his time was coming to an end, because God had told him. Joshua was chosen to take over Moses' job of leading the people. For the first time in 40 years, Moses didn't have to worry about leading everyone. He could just enjoy his last moments without any heavy duties. As Moses stood there, looking at the land he'd dreamed of but knew he'd never enter, he was ready for what was next. He had done what he was supposed to do, and now it was time for him to go. Moses died alone, but he was at peace. The story of how Moses died is told at the end of Deuteronomy, the last part of the Bible's 5th book. Thinking about death can really make us see what's important, right? Imagine being 120 years old and still not needing glasses or a cane. Moses wasn't the type to just sit back and take it easy. He was always active. When Moses passed away, the people of Israel felt it deeply. They were so sad that they spent a whole month mourning for him. But as with all things, the mourning ended. After someone dies, they are usually buried. This was true for Moses too. But there's something special about Moses' burial. The Bible says that God was the one who buried Moses in a secret place no one knows about. Why would God do this? Well, if people knew where Moses was buried, they might have turned that spot into a place where everyone went to remember him in ways that weren't right, like selling things and making it more of a show than a sacred place. So, God kept Moses' burial spot a secret. This was so important that it even caused angels to argue about it. Moses is the only one in the Bible who had such a unique burial, hidden away by God himself. So, here's the main thing to remember. Michael is a very important angel, called an archangel, who is strong enough to fight Satan. But even with all his power, Michael didn't talk back or say mean things to Satan. He let God do the talking back. In the book of Revelation, it tells a story about a big fight in heaven. Michael and his angels had to battle against Satan and his followers. Satan lost this fight and was thrown out of heaven, down to earth, along with his angels. Michael is known in the Bible as a warrior angel, different from other angels who mostly deliver messages. He's all about standing up to bad spirits and protecting what's good. His name, Michael, asks a big question. Who is like God? This shows how special Michael is, but he still knows it's not his place to judge. That's up to God. This is kind of like a story in another part of the Bible, Zechariah, where God is the one who tells Satan off, not the angels. God told Satan, "Stop right there, Satan. You're being called out by the Lord, who picks Jerusalem over you." Even though Michael is super powerful, he always listens to God. Angels, even the really strong ones like Michael, follow a certain order, and they respect it. This shows us that listening to someone in charge doesn't mean you're weak or less important. Michael is a great example of this because even though he's strong, he uses his strength the right way by following God. When it comes to fighting against bad stuff, it's something that has to be done, even though it's tough. Michael didn't use his own power to fight evil. He did it by saying God was in charge. He respected his role and knew where his power really came from. We're reminded that even the strongest beings, like Lucifer was once, need to remember they're not in charge. We're all just part of the creation, not the creator. It's not our place to question everything God does. Sure, we all have doubts, but at the end of the day, God is the boss. He's always right, and we can trust him. But the real question is, do we really trust him? Do we accept that he's in charge and respect him for who he is? One day, when people have to explain themselves, Jesus will point out that just calling him Lord isn't enough if we don't actually do what he says. We often just do our own thing. Michael the Archangel sets a great example of listening and respecting God. What about us? How do we measure up?